very gentle on you. There's not much in it, but
Hey, it's Ryan from The Carb Situation. Remember, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a trainer. I'm just a human guinea pig who likes to read a lot and willing to experiment. If you go on the journey with me, maybe you'll learn what I learned. Oh yeah, and I curse a lot. Let's do this.
hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to talk about a 72-hour water-only fast that I just did. And the first thing I got to tell you is that it was fucking crazy, but totally worth it. So do not go into this lightly. It's not something that you can just say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that. It will be a challenge, but totally worth it. My job is to tell you exactly what I experienced and what tips I think are going to help you be successful with a long-term fast like 3 days like I did. Okay, so first let's talk about preparation. I think it's smart to go into a fast while you're already in ketosis or close to it. So if you have been following a low-carb diet for a week or so at least before you try the fast, I think it's going to make a big difference. The reason I say this is because when you're fasting, your muscles and your brain and your body are all going to have to basically get their fuel from fat. So if you're already in the mode of getting your fuel from fat on your body instead of glucose, it's going to make this much easier on you. Whereas if you are on the normal SAD diet or the standard American diet and you have a high carbohydrate intake and you have lots of glucose in your blood, then you're going to experience a massive glucose crash. And when that happens, for your body to move from glucose to fat for fuel, it's going to be very hard on you. While you have food intake, you can mitigate this by just eating more low carbohydrate foods. But if you're fasting and you have a glucose crash, it's going to be devastating, I believe. So have a low carb diet in place at least a week in advance of doing your fast. And if you're in ketosis, even better. The next tip I would say about preparing is to plan your fast during a time when you will be busy, like during the work week. The hunger is going to haunt you, and it is a total fucking bitch. So if you have something to keep your mind off of it, then I think that's going to be beneficial. A lot of the times I felt myself bored and all I could do was think about food. So that part was kind of rough. I wish I would have occupied myself with more shit to do. And the last thing about preparing is what you will need. It's not a lot, of course. You need water, a ton of it. The next thing is salt. The reason you need salt is because when you start drinking all this water and you pee it all out, then a lot of your electrolytes are going to go with it. Especially if you're still working out, if you have an exercise regimen, then you're going to need to refuel those electrolytes or replenish those electrolytes, and salt is a good way to do that. And the next thing you're going to need is like some chicken broth, and maybe the next meal also something low glycemic index. So a small meal that's not going to have carbohydrates, not going to raise your blood sugar, because it will fuck you up if you do that. So that's what you need: a bunch of water, salt, some chicken broth, and plans for a low glycemic index meal. All right, cool. So now let's talk about the process. I actually took notes the entire time I was doing this experiment. Every time I felt something was notable, I made little notes, and then I kind of made a small outline of the main points. So the first thing to note is I was fucking starving. Okay? It was really, really hard. I'm not going to pull punches on that. It was extremely difficult. I feel like I'm pretty good at facing down a challenge and getting through it, and I did. But for me, it was very difficult. The way I approach things like this is I almost create like an avatar, someone who is goading me, who is challenging me, who is basically, I kind of imagine like this person or whatnot saying like, you can't do it, you're gonna crack, you're a pussy, you can't handle this. And my reaction to that is, fucking watch me. So I use that as fuel and motivation to keep going and to struggle through things like this, things that are very difficult, that require a lot of discipline. And I'm going to tell you, out of all the things that I've ever had to do that required discipline, this is up there on the list. I was so hungry. So I think I've beat that dead horse enough. it's pretty brutal. So 18 hours in until about 60 hours in. For probably the last 12 hours, my body finally kind of got used to this, and I started feeling much better, and I was like, yeah, thanks, now that I'm finished. But that's how it is. The next thing I thought was notable was that my energy level was pretty normal. I did feel some lethargy, and it was kind of like boredom. And I think this goes back to the fact that I chose a time when I wasn't busy, and that I think was a disadvantage because I had plenty of time on my hands to just sit there and ponder food and should I be doing this and was this a mistake? And that's why I think it would be smart to have something to do. But to be honest, my energy level was pretty okay the whole time, which I think is pretty incredible since I did all of my normal exercises, which is 2 full strength training sessions and a 12-mile bike ride. And I had energy for all of this. I never felt like I was having trouble or anything like that. And that's even with the poor sleep that I had, which is my next point. My sleep was good enough. So I have an Oura ring, and it kept telling me that, hey man, you are rested, you're ready to roll. But I would go to sleep at a certain time, like maybe say 10 p.m., and I would sleep until like 3 or 4 a.m., and then I would wake up and I couldn't go back to sleep. And that was shitty because I was like, damn, I'm not getting enough sleep. This is frustrating. But to be honest with you, I still felt okay. So yeah, I feel like my sleep was terrible because usually I sleep from like 10 to 6. So to wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. was frustrating, but if I'm being honest, I still had the energy. And the final tip that I want to give, and what I did, which I thought worked quite well, was to introduce foods back into your life slowly. What I mean by that is when you go through this process, your stomach is actually going to shrink. And in fact, that's something I want to talk about real quick, is that when you're drinking water, you're going to need to drink more than you usually do. Because one, that's all you can put in your body, so it kind of mitigates the hunger pangs. But also, you're actually getting water from the foods you eat. And if you're on a fast, you're not getting that water. So you're going to want to drink even more water than usual. But you don't want to just chug huge amounts of water because, like I said, your stomach's going to shrink. That's a benefit. And you don't really want to hinder that. So you want to drink water consistently and a lot of it. I seriously drank probably 3 to 5 liters each day. It was a lot and it was great. But back to introducing foods. So your stomach is going to shrink. So you can't just have a 16-ounce ribeye and a salad and vegetables and all this. I mean, you don't want to do that. It's just a bad idea. Instead, what you're going to want to do is use your chicken broth that we got and just have like maybe 2 cups of it, something like that. And it's very gentle on you. There's not much in it, but it will get your intestines ready for, oh, okay, we're back in business. We're doing food again without overloading it when it's not ready. And then maybe a couple hours later, then you'll want to have your low glycemic index meal, which I chose some leafy greens. It was spinach and spring mix. And I had some blue cheese, and I think I ate some pickled okra and some asparagus and a couple of Brussels sprouts. So it was just some vegetables. It wasn't a whole lot. So definitely do not go for the all-you-can-eat buffet. Don't get crazy when you first reintroduce foods. The next morning, I had a protein shake. Then I went to a restaurant to meet a buddy and had like a Greek salad. So that's the basic process of the 72-hour water-only fast. So finally, let's talk about my results. Here's why I think, as horrible of an experience as it seemed, it was totally worth it. So as far as weight loss goes, it was kind of funny because after my first day of fasting, I actually gained like 1.2 pounds or something like that. And the second day I lost a ton, and the third day I lost a ton more. So when it was all said and done, I lost about 7 pounds. And that was only in 3 days. I thought that was very impressive. The next really cool thing was my level of ketosis. I follow a pretty strict low carbohydrate diet. Sort of the rule of thumb that I use is that if my ketones are in the 1.0 to 3.0 range, then I am in ketosis and I'm happy and everything's going the way it should. Usually I'm in the 1.2 to 2.0 range. While I was doing this, my ketone level, as you can see, went crazy. And it was pretty awesome. I got all the way up to 5.8. And finally, I just felt amazing when it was over with. I think I followed most of the protocols that you're supposed to do to be successful. And I would generally call it a huge success. So let's recap with a couple of tips to make your fast the most successful that it can be. Number one, let's make sure that you are following a low carb diet of some sort for at least a week or so before you start this process so that your muscles are already used to burning fat. If you come right off of a high glucose diet, you're going to have more problems. Next, plan a time whenever you're going to be busy. Don't give yourself time to ruminate about food. It sucks and it will consume you, I promise. Next, we want to make sure we drink plenty of water, but on a very consistent basis. Don't just chug a gallon of water when you wake up and then chug another gallon of water before you go to bed. Next, make sure that you are putting some salt in your water. Not necessarily all the time, but maybe when you wake up, certainly after exercise, or maybe a couple of times a day. 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt into your water per day. I think you can feel free to continue your exercise regimen while you're fasting. I basically went in thinking, all right, if this doesn't work, I'll just stop. It's no big deal. And I felt fine. So I just kept going and all my exercise was great. So I think you can feel free to do that. While your body's burning fat, it doesn't really care that you're fasting. There was a couple times where I felt maybe a little weaker than I used to be, but I mean, hey, I hadn't had a single calorie in 3 fucking days. What can you expect? So exercise is fine. Your sleep is probably going to be terrible, but if you feel okay, then don't overthink it. Just go with it, do the best you can, but without having some food in your stomach to satiate you overnight, your sleep's probably going to suffer, but it was doable. And finally, remember to reintroduce foods slowly. Do the chicken broth, do the low glycemic indexed small meal, something that's not going to raise your blood sugar. And I wish you the best of luck. It's a bitch. It's a total bitch. You're going to hate it, but it's going to be fucking amazing whenever you're done, I promise. So let me know your results of the 72-hour fast, or if you have any suggestions that I didn't mention here that worked well for you, please leave all that in the comments below. I really appreciate it. So until next time, make sure to subscribe to my channel, check out my website, and I hope you do great on your fast. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.